Hi, I'm Miriam Kayo, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about 5-MeO-DMT and why I feel like this is a really important substance to work with when we're talking about working with vulnerable populations. If you're following my work, you'll know that I am working with a clinical trial here in Utah. A bill was recently passed by the Utah State Legislature to fund the University of Utah's Huntsman Mental Health Institute to put on this clinical trial, which would be offering psychedelic treatment to veterans that are experiencing treatment-resistant PTSD. I have a lot to say about the bill, about this clinical trial, so I'll link to other videos where I do a deeper dive on it. But for the purposes of this video, I just want to go through this particular treatment and why I feel like this is so hopeful in the field today as we're exploring how psychedelics can be brought into the mainstream. So I want to first share that these are all my own opinions. This is coming from my experience as a researcher, as also someone who has gone through multiple trainings and that's seen kind of firsthand what might be possible, what might work in the field in terms of psychedelic therapies. And the question that I've had is, what are the practices, what are the approaches, and what are the conditions needed to allow for this type of work to be safe, to be meaningful, and also implementable? Like, are we actually able to take a treatment and bring it into the mainstream? And that is very difficult to do. We are in a very complex time. There are so many different psychedelic substances, there are so many different ways of administering them. And so, from my experience, I'm sharing with you today what I feel like might be the most effective approach, considering all of these variables, right? So I want to share a little bit about DMT. So DMT is a naturally occurring psychedelic substance, and it's something that has been worked with for hundreds, if not thousands of years by indigenous cultures. And it's something that can be derived from plants or animals. There are traces of it in humans, and it's also something that in the last 100 years we've figured out how to create in labs. And that's really important because when we're talking about research, we want to make sure that our dosage is precise and that our substances are pure. We are able to have 5-MeO DMT as something that you can inhale. 5-MeO is such a beautiful substance, and it allows for someone to have such profound insight and experience and connection. This is a very unique substance in that it is short acting and it is fast acting. So, for the purposes of what I'm talking about, we're going to be using an inhaled form of 5-MeO DMT. So, it would be in a pen and you inhale it, and almost instantly, you're going to be able to feel a shift in your body depending on the dosage. So, this is where titration comes in. A lot of times with substances, you don't really have much of a choice in terms of the depth that you go into. But typically, especially in our culture, we kind of go big, right? And we have a big dose. And when we're working with a population that has experienced trauma, as you can imagine, it doesn't give an opportunity for someone to get to know the substance, so to speak, beforehand, before they go in deep. And so with 5-MeO DMT, you're able to take small doses. So you can start with a pen that has a very low potency of the 5-MeO DMT. So you can take a little bit and feel a little bit. And then you can work into deeper states of consciousness through your own autonomous choice of when you go deeper. So you can work your way into kind of your sweet spot of what this experience is. I would say that autonomy when it comes to a substance can allow for someone to choose how much and how deep and how quickly they go into a psychedelic experience. And when you do that, you can give someone those choice points. They're able to take the lead. And let me tell you, when we're talking about transformation, you want someone to be able to listen to themselves, to gauge where they're at, to gauge what's safe for them, and then to be able to say yes or no to moving in deeper. And that in itself, I feel like has profound healing properties, but it also gives a lot of different checkpoints for safety. And that is important when we're talking about a vulnerable population. Anyone that has PTSD or a lot of trauma, they were stripped away of their choice, right? And they have a lot of defenses in their system that are going to resist something if it doesn't feel safe. And instead of hijacking that by giving someone a huge dose of something, which will send off all the bells and whistles right in their system, if they don't feel safe, there will be resistance. And what we want to do is allow for someone to work with that resistance in a careful and precise way so that they can more gently go into an altered state. And through that process of choice, they get better at listening to themselves. And that is also something that we want to reinforce over and over again, that it isn't someone that's going to tell them what's safe for them. It's them being able to feel into their own system and make that choice for them. There's a lot of benefit to having a short acting substance, right? It fits better into our model, our therapeutic model, where the infrastructure is for a 1 hour session, right? And so it's also going to shave off a lot of the expense involved compared to other psychedelic substances that can last, up to 12 hours. And so for me, when we're looking at where we're at as a society, a shorter acting substance might be where we need to get started. As we're exploring what substances might be most supportive and why, each psychedelic will have their own profile and the pros and cons and the strengths and weaknesses and the environment that might be most conducive for safe and meaningful use. And of all of the substances and approaches that I have found, when we're talking about what might fit best in our society, I do feel like this particular treatment has the most potential for us to be able to take bite sizes, to go slow, to have more developmental readiness, as well as more autonomy. And again, coming from a human development framework, those are absolutely supportive of transformation with any intervention, but especially with psychedelic interventions. So, thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you have questions, put them in the comments or reach out to me. I'm really excited to be engaging in dialogue about how we can best work towards transformation and human flourishing using these very special, very sacred, very powerful substances. Thank you.